Well, joining us now is Jason Evans, founder of the campaign group Factor 8, who've been advocating on behalf of those infected or otherwise affected by the scandal. Jason, thank you very much for joining us. And the reason that you're part of this campaign is that your father, Jonathan, died in 1993. Tell us a little bit about him as a man. What was he like?
Well, I would be able to tell you more if it wasn't for the fact that he died when I was 4 years old in 1993. So my direct memories are few and far between. However, what I can tell you is that following his infection with hepatitis C and HIV, he became seriously ill and didn't have much of a life at all. He only found out about those infections in the summer of 1985, about 6 months after the hospital had known the results, and it ruined his and my mum's relationship and just in so many ways I couldn't even begin to tell you.
No, the strain of that and the worry constantly would take its toll. What do you make of the significance of this interim compensation, which Sir Brian Langstaff has recommended today?
Well, it's certainly a big step forward. These £100,000 interim compensation payments he's recommended should be made to surviving victims and bereaved partners. It's really important just to perhaps correct something that was said in the intro there. These payments are limited to those persons. There are many hundreds of bereaved families who not only receive no ongoing support to date, but who it's not being recommended now will receive interim compensation. And that's because the government's position to date is that where an infected person has died and they were not in a relationship at the time of their death, the family is entitled to no support at all. And unfortunately, that does include arguably some of the worst impacted families. So we're talking about numerous cases where people were orphaned. You know, in particular, there's one young lady, both of her parents died when she was 9 years old. The father was infected with HIV, unwittingly infected the mother, and both of her parents died. And also parents whose children were infected. People died as young as 8, 9, 10 years old after being infected with HIV. They too, unfortunately, are eligible for no ongoing support, and it's not being suggested they receive an interim payment at this time. So we're only talking about a select number of bereaved families at this moment. However, that being said, Sir Robert Francis's wider report does recommend compensation for all victims and bereaved families. But it's got to be said, this is certainly a step in the right direction, and hopefully the government will act, and this will get, badly needed monies into the hands of victims.
Just briefly then, what happens with your campaign? How strongly do you feel the need to keep going, given that the sign is compensation's coming in some form?
Well, I think ultimately it's on us as campaigners now to get this over the line. What we have is a recommendation. That's all it is. So Robert Francis's report, which the government have been sat on since March of this year, recommended exactly the same thing. And to date, publicly facing, absolutely nothing has happened. The Paymaster General Michael Ellis has fobbed off any MP who's asked a question by saying we're working hard, but we've seen no results of that. So our campaign has to keep going to hopefully get this pushed over the line and get compensation to all victims, all bereaved families, and ultimately, and perhaps more importantly, to get the truth on record that this scandal was totally avoidable.
Jason Evans, founder of the campaigns group Factor 8. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.